Lucinda Russell's stables, based just north of Edinburgh, are Scotland's leading national hunt yard. We met up with Lucinda today for a chat. Hi Lucinda, and welcome to Scottish Equestrian TV. First of all, can you tell us, how does someone become a racehorse owner?
Racehorse ownership is available to anyone. It's very easy. I think probably the first step would be to find yourself a trainer that you like, that you trust, maybe is close to you or is one that you're interested in. Maybe you follow their horses, and the trainer can then guide you through the whole purchase of your racehorse, the training of it, the placing in races of it. And that's probably the best way.
And what are the benefits of partnerships and syndicates?
Yeah, I think, in the old days it used to just, you would only really have one person owning a horse, but nowadays we find one of the most successful things is if you get 4 people together who are mates and then decide to take a leg and a horse each, and it spreads the cost. It also means that you can get to go racing with your friends, and it makes it more of a day out. We have to remember that now that horse racing it's not just about the sport, it's actually about having a good day out and enjoying yourself at the races.
So what's the smallest share that someone could purchase?
Oh yes, I mean we've got racing clubs. We've got a racing club called Tay Valley Chasers that's got 100 members, and I think it's very reasonable. I think it's less than £1 a day to be part of that club. So there's no limit. You can go from a very small share to being one of a club, or you can go to a share, as I say, with four of your friends or 5 of your friends, whatever you want to do. A lot of trainers would have sort of 10% shares in horses.
How much should someone spend to own a quality racehorse?
Yeah, you can spend whatever you want, from 1,000 up to many thousands, 300,000, 400,000. The most important thing is what you spend on the horse. You're probably not going to be able to recoup. You can probably recoup the training costs with prize money, but when we're looking for our Irish point-to-pointers, we're spending about 15,000, 20,000 up to 100,000.
And how often a year can a racehorse compete?
Yeah, it depends really the sort of horse that you buy. If you buy a young horse, they'll probably only run 3 times in a season, but as they get older, they're probably running 10 to 12 times in a year. The better the horse, the less often it runs, which seems a bit odd, but you tend to find that they can only run in the bigger races, and they would maybe, we like to give our horses maybe 3 weeks in between the races, but it sort of depends on the horse, the standard of how old it is, and the standard that it's running at.
And how are the winnings split between the jockey, the owner and the trainer?
Winnings, it's a bit of a contentious issue. A couple of years ago the prize money was very, very low, and you were winning maybe £1,500 up to 2,000, 3,000 for the race. And that prize money split, 10% of the prize money goes to the trainer, 10% to the jockey, and 5% goes to the stable, which is a fantastic way of doing it, because then our lads, they sort of every 3 months or 4 months they get a what's called pool money, and they'll maybe get £200, £300 each for that. So it's great the way that the prize money actually is split out.
And if there's a trophy involved, then who gets to keep it?
Well, a trophy, if it's obviously a single ownership, you get to take it home holding it above your head yourself, but if you're a group, I think sometimes people toss for it, or they pull numbers out of a hat, but I think the most difficult thing is when the racecourse then asks for the trophy back the following year, trying to remember who actually got it in the first place.
So where can you buy a racehorse?
Again, really the best thing to do if you want to buy a racehorse is to go to a trainer. Sometimes the trainer might have something in their yard, or there might be a breeder that wants to sell their own horses. The most usual place to buy a racehorse is at sales, and the bloodstock sales are, there's probably 1 a month or 2 a month. Again, speak to your trainer and decide, but we do a lot of our purchasing at the sales. We also have an agent we've got one agent in Ireland, one in France and one now in the States, and they're looking for horses that have maybe shown form in those countries that we can then buy privately. And that's it's a very fun way to do it, because you can go over to Ireland, sort of choose your horse and then bring him home with you. Not quite in the back of the car, but you can get them arranged to bring them home.
Is there any legislation involved in owning a racehorse, like VAT, tax, registration, that kind of thing?
There's not really legislation. You need to become a registered owner at Weatherby's, and Weatherby's and their good style have to make sure that you're a fit and proper person. There are a lot of rules. You're not allowed to lay your horses, so you have to be quite careful and be a good person to become a racehorse owner. But it's very simple. You can do it, as with all these things, you can do it with a credit card or over the internet, and as long as you're approved, then it's very simple to become an owner.
And what's the racing lifespan of a racehorse?
We now start our horses, we're dealing with national hunt horses, so the youngest that they can race is 3, but we actually start them off at 2 years old. We break them in, get them backed, give them a little bit of a taster of the gallops, and just get their joints and get them used to the work that they're going to do. They'll maybe have 1 or 2 runs as a 3-year-old, and then as they get older they'll run more often. They probably run, we seem to have a sort of a load of 11-year-olds that are running very, very well, and they seem to hit form again aged 11, but normally once they get to 12 that's probably the end of their racing time.
At what age do you think they peak?
I'd say they probably peak around sort of 7, 8, 9. And then after that it's a case of where they are in the handicap and how much enthusiasm they still have for the game. But as I say, we quite often have horses that are a little bit older suddenly going into a purple patch and winning plenty of races.
So after a racing horse's career is over, what are the options for the horse?
A 12-year-old horse as a pleasure horse is actually not that old, so they can go on to live till they're in their 20s. And a lot of our horses get rehomed to go to the pleasure market, so they'll maybe become show jumpers or just hacks or just be loved by families. And I'm the patron of a group called the Scott North X Racehorses, and they work very hard to put on competitions for the X racehorses so that the owners of them can take them out and show them and compete with them. But I would say, yeah, the majority of our horses would go off to private homes afterwards. Some of them also go point-to-pointing, which is quite a fun thing for them to do. It's an amateur rider game that happens at weekends, organised normally by the hunts, and it gives older horses something to do and a way to keep on competing. It's normally over 3 miles. The standard, the pace is a little bit slower than it would be under rules, so that's quite a fun thing for the horses that still want to keep on being racehorses, and they can continue to do that till they're 13 or 14. And again, normally after that they then become hacks. And our horses they're all very used to the roads, as you've seen today on the gallops. They walk along the road to get to the gallop, so they're good to ride, and a lot of them go on to actually do almost better in their private homes afterwards.
And about yourself, Lucinda, how long have you been involved in the industry?
I started training in 1995, which I don't think is a very long time ago, but as some of my staff actually were born in 1995, it must be quite some time ago. And I started off just with 8 horses. I'd been point-to-pointing and trained some winners in the point-to-point field, and it's sort of built up from there, and we've now got about 85 actually in training, so it's certainly expanded.
Well, you've won a great number of races and had many placed. So in your opinion, what makes a great racehorse?
I mean, I always say that when we're training the racehorses, we're really training athletes. And in the same way that a human has to have the desire to win, they have to have the attitude to stand the training and the desire to win. They also have to be very sound, because obviously we're putting them under a lot of physical stress, so they have to have the right conformation so that they can keep galloping and keep working every day. It's very interesting when you're training racehorses, you can't say to them, look, you've got a race in 10 days time, whereas with an athlete they know that they're going to be training for the Olympics or whatever. But we have to try and tailor their training so that they arrive at the race in exactly the right condition. And as I say, you have to have horses that can stand that training and take the work that you give them.
Have you ever had a favourite or favourites?
I've always got favourites. I suppose my long-lasting favourite is Fively Builds, who was my first horse that I ran under rules as a trainer. We still have him now. I think he must be about 26 years old, and he's at home on the farm, and he goes out with all the young horses and gets turned out in the field. He still comes in at night and gets loved and brushed, and he's a wonderful old horse. He still has something about him, a sort of majesty about him. But as the time goes on, I mean, obviously I love all the horses that win, and especially the very good ones. I suppose at the moment my favourite would probably be Degas Art, because he's got such a strong temperament, such a big character, and he just loves the job. He's a horse that will keep on racing for years and years.
As a trainer, do you compete at all the UK racecourses?
Yes, I think we very much pride ourselves on being top in Scotland, and it's very important for us to do well in Scotland. But if we've got the horses that are good enough, we love taking them down south and stealing some of their prize money as well, plundering it down south. And nowadays it's so easy to get up and down. We've got great lorries that speed up and down the motorways, and it only takes, 6.5, 7 hours to get down south. The horses can stay overnight, they're fresh for the next morning, and we seem to have been successful doing that. Obviously we only take the ones that we really think are going to do well down there, but we do seem to have a good success rate of stealing back the English prize money.
So how long roughly does it take for a racehorse to recover after a journey and a race itself?
I think physiologically they say that it takes as long as they drink that night, they're pretty much recovered. We take their weight sometimes when they go and come back, and after a race they'll maybe lose up to 20 kilos, but within 12 hours of being home they can put that weight back on. So it doesn't take too long, and I think I certainly feel that sometimes it's easier to give a horse a long journey and then give them time to get over it, race them the next day, than to be travelling them for 5 or 6 hours and then try and race them after that.
Do you think there are some courses that suit some horses better than others?
Oh, definitely. We certainly have some horses that prefer a sharp track, so there'll be fast horses that can zim around the bends and speed up the home straight. Other horses are gallopers and they like the big galloping tracks. We seem to do terribly well at Ayr this season. I think that's because, well, A, it's a lovely track, but our horses seem to just be suited by it, the way that we train them. They've got the stamina for the long track, but they also can speed up the home straight.
So how do you select the correct jockey for a particular horse?
We're very lucky with that. As you've seen today, we've got 3 young jockeys, conditional jockeys, that are working here, and we've also got Pete Buchanan, who's the senior jockey, and so we can match them to them at home and then match them actually on the race day. Pete Buchanan would ride most of the horses, but it's very handy having these young boys because they get a weight allowance. And obviously we also have to use AP McCoy, as you've seen on Tap Night. He rides for JP McManus, so we can always use him and call on him, or Skew's son, Tom Scudamore, who's had a few winners for us this season.
And what challenges do you think horse racing faces over the next 12 months and beyond?
I think with all businesses and all industries, we have to be very careful about the economics and how we keep funding the industry. We're very lucky, there's a great media deal within racing now, and before the prize money wasn't terribly good, but it's starting to take an upturn now. We're very, very lucky with that, and I think that needs to keep on being addressed. One of the most important things I feel about racing is that we need to make it a really good day out, so that when people come to watch, they want to get involved, they want to own a racehorse, and they want to keep coming back, keep eating and drinking at the racecourses. So I think we're very lucky in Scotland. The 5 tracks up here are wonderful at making it a good day out, and I think that's very important.
If there was one thing you could change in racing, what would it be?
The things that you can change, as the racecourses are getting, as I say, much better at making it a good day out, they're looking after their track a lot better, and I think we're getting a lot fewer injuries from that. So I think just keep funding the racecourses to make the going the best that they can, so that the horses are racing on the sounder surface.
In what ways do you see Scottish Equestrian TV being an advantage to the Scottish equine industry?
I think it's fantastic that you've set up the Equestrian TV, and it shows all sides of the sports, and it's very important. When I started off back in the early 90s, I didn't really know very much about racing, and it wasn't sort of as promoted as it is now. And I think nowadays, especially when we're talking about rehoming our racehorses, before people used to think racehorses were mad and skittery, and they're not at all. They're actually very quiet and relaxed. And I think that's the more exposure that we get, and the more that other sports realise that, our horses can go on and go show jumping, go play at dressage and go eventing. I think that's very, very healthy for our sport.
Lucinda, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you.
Now, if you would like to contact Lucinda, please check out her website at www.lucindarussell.com.